Alright guys, today we're going to be reacting to still winning. Kamala's DNC bounce is nowhere to be found, and Trump is ahead naturally. To jump in.
Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports. We're the independent pollster that actually has the guts to defend our work directly to your face instead of hiding behind an army of mainstream media propagandists and Twitter NPCs. And today I'm here to report some really important news, and that is that despite the Democratic National Convention, despite the Kamala nomenon, despite the best speech in history since the Gettysburg Address, Donald Trump is still beating Kamala Harris in a 2024 rematch. And he has been in every single poll that we've put out this year. Now, believe it or not, we are not shilling for Trump here. We are not Republican pollsters. We're independent. And believe it or not, our business would do just as well if Trump lost and we were right about it. But the reason we're so emphatic is because we believe that the entire polling industry is lying to you, and we hate it when Americans get lied to because
Of course, because they don't make money. If the election is if we really know the results of the polling, these media outlets will not make money. They will not make money. So they have to make it pretend that everything is close. You know what I'm saying? Like everything is, like very close. And this tie, believe me, folks, it's not even close. But that's why we had to win big. Now, when there's no shenanigan this time around.
Really, our numbers are kind of similar to where they were back in July. A lot's happened since then, and the race has tightened a few points. But it's like the day that Joe Biden dropped out of his presidential campaign and Kamala got anointed in a pretty undemocratic process, the entire industry lurched to the left, working overtime to carry the Democrats' water, because we see this massive shift to the left and everybody's polling, and they were kind of polling like us back in July. But today we're going to get into the latest, just released about 3 hours ago, head-to-head matchups. And if you're new to the channel, we put these out every Thursday morning. So follow us if you want to see more results as we get closer to election day. Plus, we also updated all of our 2024 charts, and we're also going to start layering in some new analysis here and there, as well as some more technical talk about polling, because I see a lot of misinformation, a lot of sort of one-line slogans they're used to dismiss people's work by...
Bro, I'm seeing some polls here that supposedly have Kamala winning for, 10 and 5. I mean, this is crazy, folks. This is crazy. So Kamala has nothing to do with Biden, I guess, right? She's just a new person coming from the space that has nothing to do with the current administration. And who is currently just leading the country? It's supposed to be Biden. Biden all of a sudden just went, nowhere. Everything is so weird, man.
People who have no idea what they're talking about. But before we go any further, let's check in on the polling industry, shall we? And this is the Real Clear Politics straight average of all of the good polls that have been put out. And, Harris is winning by 1.8% among all pollsters, which is a Harris popular vote lead, but still 5 points worse than Joe Biden was doing 4 years ago. Now, I will say, I've looked at some of these polls individually and picked apart the crosstabs, and there's always something different, but there's always this trend that the polls are in some way or another oversampling Democrats. Maybe it's because their independents lean more left. Maybe it's because they have more people that voted Biden in 2020. Maybe it's because they're not disclosing their weightings, or they're shifting their party weightings more Democrat week over week. But the biggest standout here is that if you take us off the list, there have only been 2 polls put out since the middle of August. And this was after the DNC. Everybody expected that would be Kamala Harris's high watermark. So why isn't everybody in the industry rushing to lock in those results? It's really fascinating, isn't it? If you want to go further down the page and check my work, you can actually add up all of the polls that were done by date. And if you just look at any of the months here, I mean, look at the number of polls that were put out in the month of July. Dozens and dozens.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot less in the last few weeks. It's either...
That is a good point. Something is not adding up, folks. Something is not adding up.
Like they burned through all their budget in July, or they're not going to be happy with the results they think they're going to find. But let's also check in on 538. And this is not a polling average. This is a political model that's built on polling data. They go ahead and take those results and then apply some really opaque adjustments to them. And some of those adjustments, as you can see here, have even brought Trump down into the mid 30s.
Yeah.
That's got to be what, 36?
Yep.
Maybe 36 and a half points. I don't remember seeing any polls that were put out that had Trump at 36. So why did 538 do that to that poll? I think that's a valid question. But anyways, Harris was up 1.8 in the Real Clear Politics aggregate. And I've seen a lot of headlines, a lot of people pondering, and even internal polling that suggests the entire polling industry is leaning to left. But here we are with a model that's supposed to correct for those biases, taking all of that polling data and making it even more left. And therefore, in our opinion, when you...
I just got polled. So because I work from home, I have to use my landline. Happens to be that pollsters do call in my landline. And I think I completed 3 pollsters already. And I'm telling you folks, these people want to shove it down Kamala Harris. I mean, I was answering questions about Kamala Harris for almost 30 minutes. And the way they asked the question is just to push her message onto you too. It's the weirdest thing ever. They will ask me about Project 2025, stuff like that. And I'm like, man, that has nothing to do with Trump. Why are they asking me about Project 2025? I'm telling you, folks. And it's mostly landlines, though. Landline. I think in New York once, I was contacted by a poster. But now that I have a landline, I got posters, calls all the time. And the last one that I got, man, they were trying to push Kamala Harris down to my throat. It's crazy.
You look at a black box model like this and see that, it can only be considered propaganda. I guess the best news here is that with Harris at 1.8 and them at 3.6, they're only carrying about 1.8 points of Democrat water, when a week ago it was a lot more like 2.5 points. But anyway, good job, 538. So here are the crosstabs, and these, like I said, just came out 3 hours ago. The data here was collected August 22nd and then Sunday through Wednesday, last night of this week. So all 5 of these data points are technically after the DNC, although people answering this poll on the 22nd were likely still watching Kamala Harris's speech. And 4 out of the 5 data points were after the RFK endorsement. And here we go. Donald Trump is now winning by 2 points, 48% to 46%. And we are no longer doing a multi-way matchup since RFK dropped out of the race. I know a lot of people will say that he's on a bunch of states' ballots still, and that is correct. But most people who are going to still vote for RFK after his Trump endorsement probably know RFK exists and will probably think about him when they answer the some other candidate response, which still gets 3%. I'll also say that Trump's lead here was a shave over 1.5 points, and it rounded up. And that is down a little bit from last week's numbers, which did have some DNC results baked into them, but Trump was up 2 in the 2-way and 3 in the multi-way, I believe. Now, the gender results are pretty tight here. These have been oscillating back and forth. Some of the polls, Trump leads big among men and is losing among women, but here, a lot tighter. Probably going to start averaging these out into bigger virtual polls to see what the real signal is. He's losing among 18 to 39-year-olds by 5 points, which is more than in recent polling, but maybe the 18 to 39-year-olds were most affected by the DNC coverage. He's actually losing among 65 and older. It's been more like tied this cycle, but he's winning.
It makes sense. Those are boomers, right? Boomers and Generation X. they're the one that started all this shenanigan.
More among middle-aged voters. That's a pretty solid 8-point lead. So I'm pretty happy with these age numbers. The race numbers here look like exactly what I would predict. He's winning by 7 points among white voters, taking 28% of the black vote. And you could say, well, there's no way Trump's going to take 28% of the black vote. And I might agree with you, because what I'm weighting and dialing my methodology in is to nail the total top line result. And it's really hard to make everything match the final reported exit polling And that's even if you trust the exit polling. But directionally, this is a massive increase in the black support for Trump in our polling. And so I would expect to see a similar trend when the final votes get counted. Hispanic voters roughly tied, Trump up a little bit. That's right about where it's been. Now, looking at the party numbers, the crossover advantage is almost nil here. It leans 1 point towards Trump. But Trump is still winning 8 points among independents. And unlike other polls, we don't force the independents into leaners to try and sweep them under the rug. We realize that a lot more people are identifying as independents as they increasingly hate the two political parties. Now, we could go out into some of these other crosstabs here. Harris is still winning among rich voters
Isn't interesting?
And upper middle class voters, but Trump is winning among everybody who earns less than 100K, although the people most likely to have government support, it's roughly tied. Among education, the most educated graduate schools plus go Harris by 11 points. College graduates go Harris by 4. Everybody else goes Trump. And there's always Biden approval. Look at the division here. Biden strong approvers, 91%. Go Harris. I'm actually surprised that number isn't higher. The strongly disapproves are more Trump aligned. And this gives you an idea of who the somewhats are. The somewhats are people who are Democrats and will vote blue no matter who. They just can't bring themselves to say they strongly approve of Biden. Maybe that's because of the debate performance. I don't know. But the somewhat disapproves, these people are just nebulous. It's like they don't have a political spine.
No, the people like that are just a waste of time. A waste of time. Like, and this is where it comes down to what Vivek Ramaswamy said. Like, you should have some skin in the game. You should have like a test, something that can just give you something where you can just take as a test and you can pass it, and then we can give you the right to vote. Because that 40 to 40%, this is a big problem. And if you don't know what the hell is going on in the country that you live in, you should not even have the right to vote. I'm sorry. You need to have some skin in the game. This should not be at numbers. People cannot be this delusional. I mean, we cannot be in a position where we have our cities being run down, illegal immigrants are rampant all over the country, and you still have people deciding whether or not we are in a good or bad position. This is bad. This is wrong.
They'll answer whatever. They don't know much about politics, probably.
Yeah.
People who say the country is headed in the right direction.
Civil test. It's a civil test. That's where you're.
There's about 35% of them. Go Harris, 82% to 15%. But people who say the country is headed on the wrong track.
That's crazy, man.
Go Trump, 72% to 22%.
That's raw data.
So those are some pretty fascinating numbers, and you'll get the next full weekly matchup results next Thursday. Follow us here on YouTube or at Twitter at Rasmussen_poll if you want to get it when those drop. But every day we also release 20. And as you can see here, they leaned Trump. Recent poll of almost 1,900 U.S. likely voters. Respondent count is the unweighted count of who the poll respondents said they voted for in 2020. And as you can see here, they leaned Trump 51% to 42%. Now, the argument that all of these pollsters hide behind is that the reason they oversampled Democrats is because the Republican vote is elusive. But what I'm showing you right here is that it absolutely isn't at all. Most of my respondents voted for Trump in 2020. That's just the way it shakes out when I go into the field and take a poll. And clearly, if I put results out that showed that 51% of people voted for Trump in 2020, they would not be accurate. And by weighting to the right column, 49% Biden, 45% Trump, it makes it much closer to what the electoral mix was in 2020, which, in my opinion, this election is kind of an extension of. Now, we can argue about why the New York Times has too many Biden supporters in their data. Could be just because they're using different data sources than us. Maybe it's because their brand is just kryptonite. I mean, can you just imagine?
I don't know, man. I don't know. We need to vet our voters, man. People need to understand what the hell's going on. I mean, I think we overestimate the ability of Americans to really understand what's going on. Clearly, they have no idea. I mean, look at Denver and Colorado. They have illegal immigrants just taking over, and they're still gonna build Democrat. How you can be this stupid, right? How can you be this stupid as a voter? New York City, you have all these illegal immigrants, and they're still voting Democrat. These dumbass. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm gonna leave the description down below, that way you can go see the entire thing. I will see you in the next one.